he could find out what happened from the defendant and from the GPS. And like I told you, the GPS told the truth, but he did not. When Lieutenant Thompson is interacting with the defendant, he's wearing what's known as a BWC, a body-worn camera. It's right on his chest. And while he's talking with the defendant at a picnic table that's there, the defendant is seated across from him. Now, you can't really see his face because it's like from chest to chest level, right? But you can hear what's being said. You'll hear the way that Lieutenant Thompson was speaking to the defendant in a calm way, just trying to find out what happened. Because at that point in time, there's no indication that this is a criminal case. They just need to figure out what the heck happened. So as they start talking, the defendant starts explaining himself. But the way he does it was an abdication of his responsibility and accountability, because the evidence in this case is going to show that what he said happened did not happen. What he did to avoid responsibility and accountability is he told this story to Lieutenant Thompson that there was this other vessel that had thrown a big wake in his way. And to keep his passengers safe, he had to try to attack through the wake, like taking evasive action. But we know from the GPS, which Lieutenant Thompson didn't have at that moment, he was on a straight course. I showed you. It was for 9 seconds straight ahead. There was no other boat. He made this up because he didn't want to be blamed for what was clearly his fault.
Judge will reserve a motion.
So, when Lieutenant Thompson asks, how did the crash happen? The defendant tells this story about what the evidence is going to suggest is a phantom boat. Now, clearly, nobody's going to be fully in charge of their rational faculties after a horrific event like this, whether it's your fault or not. This is a really stressful thing for anybody to go through. And he was injured. But he was alert. He was able to walk around. He was able to be responsive to questions. When the defendant told this story of the phantom vessel, he then was asked, would you give a written statement about what happened? This is what he wrote. Going back to ORC, Ocean Reef Club, through channel, pass boat on left side of my boat. Veer to the right to avoid big waves. Coming back into the wave, I lost control of steering wheel as boat was going through the big waves. I was ejected from the boat. That's what he said happened. He said it in more detail orally to Lieutenant Thompson, but that's what he wrote. And even when the GPS proved that he was wrong, he doubled down on the things he said to Lieutenant Thompson. Because in the aftermath of this crash, there was a lawsuit against the defendant. And you'll learn that in civil lawsuits, one of the things that happens is a civil attorney may say to the person that they're suing, tell us about how this crash happened. And that kind of a document is called an interrogatory. And when you answer an interrogatory, your answer has to be under oath through the penalties of perjury. And when he was asked in this interrogatory, how did this crash happen? You know what he said? What I said to Lieutenant Thompson, that's how the crash happened. How did the police wind up getting this GPS data? Well, in an effort to appear cooperative with the police, the defendant signs a form giving them consent to go on his boat and take from it the SIMRAD, that's the brand name of the chart plotter devices or the multifunctioning displays that he has. It's not completely unlike CarPlay, if anybody uses their Apple phone with their car, where you can scroll through different maps, charts, things like that. The defendant gives permission for that. And those SIMRAD navigational devices are then brought to a man who is, number one, a former FWC officer. Number two, is currently a lieutenant with the Town of Palm Beach Police Department as an internal affairs supervisor. But also, number three, is a maritime expert who testifies regularly in the field of safe navigation, safe boating requirements, and also in how to download and interpret GPS data. His name is Paul Albert, and you will hear from him about how GPS works, how he was able to extract GPS data from the defendant's boat, even after it had been upside down and underwater until they could salvage it and bring it back to shore. He will tell you unequivocally the defendant's boat took no evasive action to avoid striking that channel marker. There was no other boat in that vicinity. The defendant said that there was another boat, which is clearly disproven. He also told Lieutenant Thompson that he had 2 beers while he was out at that sandbar. Now, it would not be practical for you all as jurors to go out to the scene of this vessel crash and feel for yourself what it's like to go 47 miles an hour through that narrow channel on the wrong side of it. So Lieutenant Thompson and Mr. Albert did the best that they could to try to recreate it for any jurors that might be on this panel, whether you have experience boating or not. What they did was, using buoys and GPS points, they dropped one buoy in the Cutter Bank Channel where the second to last track point is, and one right before the last track mark, which is less than 30 feet away from where that channel marker is. They then had Lieutenant Thompson take his police vessel, which, like the defendant's, is 29 feet, has a center console, and has 2 300 horsepower engines. And what he did was he then began coming through the channel, and by the time he got to where that second to last track mark is, he was going 43 miles an hour. He then continues to accelerate his vessel until he's at 47 miles an hour, and at the last second, swerves to avoid hitting the channel marker. To give you an idea of what that's like, we had a veteran crime scene detective with the sheriff's office come out on a Marine Patrol boat and launch a drone that then could film the boat as Lieutenant Thompson piloted it through the channel. In addition, a GoPro camera was affixed to the front of Lieutenant Thompson's boat so that jurors could get an eye view of what you could see if you're looking and when you can see that channel marker up ahead. In addition, a GoPro camera was attached to the actual channel marker so that you could see that same approach as Lieutenant Thompson comes right up to it and avoids hitting it at the last second. Now, lest you think that the police did all of this without concerns for safety, you will learn that during this exercise, there were marked police boats on the north and south end of the channel to make sure no vessels were going to be in that area. Plus, we had the Marine Patrol boat that the detective had launched the drone from. Plus, as Lieutenant Thompson was going through this channel, he had his police lights activated. In addition to that, everyone that was on board his vessel for this exercise was wearing a life jacket, or what's called a PFD, a personal flotation device. When you see this footage, you will realize that traveling 45 miles an hour through waters, even when they're calm, is nothing like going 45 miles an hour in a car.